Hello and welcome back to another episode of Track Talks. Today we are joined by Conundrumer for
Hello.
a absolute honker of a track. Um, yeah, I mean maybe you should start with explaining some of like the legacy of Omniverse One, I guess, so people kind of get a bit of the history of this track.
Omniverse 1. All right. Um, let me.
Because
Uh,
there's a 10-year gap between I think between the first and second in the Omniverse
I mean,
series.
so Omniverse 1. Um, make sure to find it on our other lines too. That was originally released in like 2007, but we also have Omniverse 2 beta, which was released in 2008. This was the first release version,
Okay.
and this is just no scenery, just the track itself.
Ah,
And
yeah.
yeah, yeah, this was released in 2008. I made this track for uh, the Tournament of Champions 2. It was a big contest in Arada Lines. I think over 90 people uh, were in the contest, and this ended up winning. Like I had grand ambitions to like create the track, um, like not just an omni style track, but to introduce new ideas like music sync and more scenery.
Ah, interesting. So,
And
go ahead.
also, one of my initial motivations for the scenery was there was a question of how do we scene quirk? Everyone was trying different things, and I was like, I have some ideas, and I didn't get to do it at the time. Anyway, what are you gonna ask?
I think you answered what I was going to ask anyway. Um, Specifically, one thing I really liked about this was the song that you actually chose from The Matrix. Did you always have that in mind? Because that was a really good choice, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, so yes, I created this track with that in mind, or rather, I made the track around the framework of that song. And because we didn't have tools to music sync it, like we didn't have music syncing tools, I just roughly uh, try to line up the sections and then just told myself, I'm gonna do some video editing to force the line of the track to sync with the music. And then last year I reversed it. I edited the music to sync with the track.
Nice. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So, obviously, to go along with the music theme, you have this crazy style. Is this like again going back to the Matrix theme? Is this like the grid of Line Rider, but like kind of really artistically, kind of like morphed?
I haven't interpreted as the grid of Line Rider. I just the my motivations for the grid was I have I can't find it, but I made initial run with this or made initial sketch of this in 2009 with grids because for a long time grids have the aesthetics of grids have interested me. I don't um yeah, like drawn, like I like grids.
Yeah.
Um and this one intro sequence for this TV show from my childhood, a bunch of grids, like this has launched a lot of my style, like my or aesthetic preferences and tastes. So that's what I would say with is my inspiration for a grid, or like why I was interested in this in the first place. Oh, right. Also, um, hold on. Where are my climb? Oh, um, and also I like looking at shapes, like wireframes of shapes, like this climb bottle. or
Yeah.
yeah, when I was a child, I would just love looking at this kind of stuff. And also gravity wells, the literal gravity wells. I like looking at these grids get distorted like this. And then also one of my motivations for this track is to um, explore ways we could show 3D details without relying on texture. And again, one of my sketches from 2009 was just only this section where I drew some grids. It faded off in distance, but last year I had the idea of extending it to the entire track. So that's how that's how the grid came about. From that, I just wanted to create um, a 3D surface. I wanted to create a cohesive structure for the world, and then everything followed from there.
Wow, that's awesome. So, what is like the world of Omniverse?
Uh, I'm only so it's interesting how it works. I did not really have any story or lore in mind until the night before I finished. Um, there was one crucial section where I had this zoom out, the final zoom out that was like all the way, and um, be- before I added all the text, it was just this blank, well, relatively empty scene over here. And I saw that and I just thought to myself, something needs to be here. Like this is the final zoom out before the escape. There needs to be some sort of revelation or grand explanation of what's going on. So um, the inspiration for this text, that was before I came up with the lore. I just thought, all right, I'm gonna retrofit some sort of plot. I'm gonna make it seem like an escape thing without really thinking too much into it. And that was from 2013. I had a friend who painted this in her childhood bedroom, and I glitched it later. And it was just so striking to me. Like it stuck with me like something about this, like some sort of desperation to get out. So that's where I got this text. Um, and then this came next. The Omniverse is a giant quirk in a simulation. I was pacing around in my kitchen and thinking, what can I write here? And then it just suddenly came to mind. Like, I thought, okay, I'm going to do something clever. I'm going to write this text for the viewers, for casual viewers who don't have any context. They're going to think, right, the Omniverse, this world, is a giant quirk, a massive glitch in a simulation or the Matrix. But for people who do know the context for this track or just Line Rider, the context of Line Rider and the history, they're going to think the Omniverse, yes, this track is a giant quirk. It is indeed pretty big in the simulation, a physics simulation. Um, and then this text, Embrace the Void, that also came up spontaneously when I was just finishing up this track. The initial prompt was I want to have text that fades away. I thought that would be a cool effect. And I thought, and then it just spontaneously hit me. What if I had text that just references itself, text that embraces the void, that is self-referencing, saying, yes, this text itself is embracing the void. And then the other meanings came into mind, like embrace the void. Yes, the writer goes into a white void after, and then I thought, oh yeah, also we can tack on additional meaning because I think we need to think about more usages of negative space in Line Rider, which I'll get to later. And then from there, that's how I leave everything else up for viewer interpretation. I did not plan this with a story or lore. I just retrofitted it and made it work.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, like you say, some of the lettering you did, I appreciated the double meaning of the giant quirk part. And what made you want to put the entire other track back into this track as well for that
Well,
brief second?
again, I thought something needs to be here.
Yeah.
And last year I thought, okay, so last year I thought, all right, in the ending, I want Bosch to like zoom up and then see all sorts of other tracks made in the past, like flash by. That was like my initial idea. I want to like reference other tracks to be like, yes, we're like
Ah.
going through portals into other worlds, but then I decided that was too much and too it wouldn't work because we don't really recognize tracks by how they look, only how they move.
Hmm.
Then I had was presented with the scenario of like the final zoom out, and I thought something needs to be here. I could draw this text, but I could also just put this track, put the Omniverse one here to just create a sense of continuity and make this series make this a true sequel. It was spontaneous and it just worked.
Yeah, it's awesome. So, what am I not asking you here?
Sorry.
What am I not asking you? Because you have quite a lot of stuff prepared for this. I understand.
Oh, I mean, I have a lot of notes, but I haven't organized how I'm going to talk about it. But well, I could like talk about how I created the scenery or the track. Actually, let's start with um, the track because I mentioned like the last 40 seconds or the ending. Like, so all of this is like the original from 2008.
Hmm.
Original, 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 original. And then this part is when I started redoing the track because initially it was like, where'd it go? Oh, um, it was less interesting, I guess, or it was different. It went like this. There's some recycling manuals, some other random recycling. Let me speed this up. And and then a lot of flings, a lot of flings, a lot of flings because I was trying. My original idea was to have Bosch go back up,
Right.
and this was the best I could do with the limited amount of time. Like I think I mentioned pulling an all nighter for this, and the part I did while pulling an all nighter was all these flings, and then I thought, okay, I wanted an all Y upwards part,
Hmm.
so this part is my attempt at all Y with very little time left. And I thought, okay, Bosch needs to accelerate somewhere to all X part. So that was the original track for the latter part. Uh, but I mean, I already knew it was rushed and it wasn't really what I wanted. So
Uh,
I had by the time so there, at this point I knew I had better tools. I mean, I did make an attempt at redoing the track in 2013 before all the new tools, but it was in 2017, July 2017. I thought I'm gonna make an attempt at finishing this, and I started working on a track. And I, with the biggest thing, probably for this section, I thought I want to revisit a lot of these curves and space. In the past, we called it space recycling, but now I just call it revisiting, or just like um, making the track into something more tangible, like actual scenery that you ride. So that's why I created this whole granule to on the outside of this curve. This is was this the outside curve was made in 2017. The inside curve is it was original because I thought it would be interesting to have a giant tube that Bosch rides. And then you have this. This is uses line extensions, but that ended up not being really visible in the final product. I don't really care. And then and it was at this point I made that over there because also to uh, align with this old curve. And then from there I thought, okay, we need to get Bosch back up because that was like one of my original ideas. and I want to stick to it. And then initially I was thinking, okay, how do I like do a thing properly to go back up there? And then I looked at it was 2017. I was looking at this, thinking about like what I could do, and then thinking, okay, I need to get Bosch back up. And then I had inspiration struck. Wait a minute, I don't have to make Bosch go up another way. What if I make Bosch go up from whence he came? Like they're all Y over here. What if I made Bosch go up there? I have the tools. I think I can pull it off. So I spent the entire month of July 7th, 2017 making that work, getting Bosch over there while synchronizing in this section because I could, using all the modern techniques that we all knew. And then I made it work. I recycled the famous all Y section back up. And then from there, I knew Bosch knew. I just knew that Bosch had to keep ascending. So that's the final section that I also did in 2017. This revolving-ish fling.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this used to be just a elevator, but then I realized I could slice it up like this because I wanted to make room for the scenery animation. Anyway, so that's
Okay.
the creation of the final part of the track. Oh yeah, of course, the 10-point cannon over here. A flip
Ooh.
cannon, no, it's you have to um not obvious at all, just like Bosch suddenly flips. Probably an unsettling drawing effect that would be appropriate for ending. So that's how I made the last part of the track. Oh, and also, okay, one more note. Um, I mentioned getting Bosch back up but going with the theme of revisiting past parts of the track, I wanted to have the track go wind around the original track to create, like in fast tracks, it's popular to have like scenery lines curve around the track lines. I thought,
Hmm.
what if we just made Bosch ride those kinds of lines? So that was like why I arranged it this way.
Interesting.
So that's how it originally looked. Um, and that's how I made the last part of the track.
Nice. So, should we move on to talking about that animation at the end?
So what?
Should we talk about that animation you made at the end?
Oh, okay, right. Let me toggle back on the scenery. So, oh, if it isn't obvious, I use techniques that I created from Sealy.
Yeah.
Um,
It's like so perfect. I was
and
just like, what the fuck?
right. So a few parts to this. I didn't make. It took a while for me to figure out like what decisions to make for this. Initially, I thought, okay, I'm gonna have like inter intersecting parallel lines, but then I realized it would be too busy. So like I was trying to think of like ideas for the ending animation. I had several, um, but eventually decided to just use originally what was already existing in this track. So that means using the grid lines and using these polyhedrons. Otherwise, there'll be too much going on. It'll be incoherent and hard to grasp. So yeah, I decided, okay, let's use the grid lines, and let's make a twist, and then let's have the polyhedrons. It's gonna twist because I want it to rotate, And again, one of the things I wanted to explore in this track is the illusion of 3D. And one of the most effective way to simulate 3D is to put it into motion and in every dimension possible. So that includes rotating in multiple dimensions or on multiple axes. So that was how I developed the concept. And with respect to like actually generating this, it was not totally automated. Yes, I did create a 3D renderer, but I didn't create it with being able to overlap on existing lines. I had to do a little manual work. So first I generated the background, isolated that onto the um, its own layer. Then I created the shapes in the back, like the back half of this, and then I took the convex hull, like the outline of the shapes, and then separated that from the front of those shapes. And then when I had that, I could select all of this and use the slice mod. Let me just give a little demo just to reference what I'm talking about. So I have this, and then I have a shape in front, and I select all these shapes, and I slice them out, and then that's how I create the effect of the shaping on top. So I
Oh,
select all these uh, outlines and remove the background, add it in the interior of these shapes, and then proceeded to the next layer of shapes with also the outlines of those shapes, and then do the same thing, remove everything in the back, add it back in the interior, and then finally overlay the portal on top. So there was some manual work involved in making this because making a full-on 3D render was too much work. Like having to do those calculations, I just didn't want to deal with. It was just faster to do it manually. But
yeah.
to um, demonstrate this, this is not it. Um, Helix one was um, let's just render cubes for now because everything follows from there. Something, all right, that didn't work. Scale, position, matrix. No, just okay. Oh, I think I uh backing up, um I have coded um these shapes, cubes, tetrahedra, and spheres,
Mm.
and then I can generate them wherever the camera's pointing. And from there I just added some more code to make it. I did some 3D rotations, like techniques from computer graphics to make it rotate around like this. Um, and I did it at 60 frames per second. Yeah, that's how I did it.
Well, it's still pretty mind blowing to me, to be honest.
And one of the things I wanted to, so I knew I wanted to keep intensifying. Like, yeah, this section with the coherent rotations is like impressive. But I wanted to keep intensifying because the music called for it.
Mm.
So I added in all these lines, the walls, also generated, and then I accelerated the rotation too, or just made it keep rotating faster until it just starts flickering. Like there's a principle of repeating intervals that um, I made this.
Ah,
Um, so basically, when you have things repeat, animation works because we have like repeating. Um, I think this is a better demo. Animation works because we have repeating just period things occurring at a repeated interval. So let me share that again. This is rotating.
yeah,
Um, it's rotating now. It's rotating faster, and it's like flickering through the frame to the intervals.
weird. That is so trippy.
And there we go. We have animation RL.
It's just like
Yeah, but
growing.
uh, that effect of like accelerating things, phasing in and out. This is what I call rational oscillations. Um, like okay, yeah, a lot of math to put it shortly, but
Jeez.
it just emerges when you have repeating intervals phase in and out of the frame rate. So that's animation.
Yeah, and again, this is probably one of the most impressive animations that we have, I think, in Line Rider at the moment. This has got to be,
Yeah.
especially as, especially in its own way. I don't think anyone's done anything like this with abstract shapes in the same way. I mean, we
It's
have,
hard to do it.
yeah, I mean, we have
Yeah.
Sealy, but it's not as specific as this.
Oh, so for Sealy, we initially had the idea of having these 3D shapes rotating around, but at the time I was like, we can't do this. Bosch is not moving fast enough.
Yeah,
Then, well, I made it work.
yeah, fair enough.
Um, I could do more. Like, this took some thought and math, but I could do more. But the track just didn't call for it. Like, I only had this much, and I had a story to tell. But I could do more.
Well, yeah, maybe he'll do something more with this kind of concept in future tracks.
Maybe, you know.
Yeah, pretty insane end to that track. So, is there any other parts of the track that you would want to talk about specifically?
Um, well, okay, so this shape, I traced it in 2009. It's
Hmm.
based upon, what do you call it? Waterman polyhedron. Basically, you take a bunch of spheres, pack them up, and then make a sphere out of all those spheres, and then connect the points, and then eventually it starts resembling a sphere, like over here. It can get pretty big. I found a generator online. I don't know where it went, but I generated one of those, and then I traced it.
That's awesome.
Um, these spheres I generated, like with this. Um, I imported my avatar. Um, these curves I just made with the Bezier tool.
Ah, nice.
Let me just do a little demo with that. Yeah, and I can only draw them one at a time. Like this is state of art for line writer, but honestly, for vector graphics illustrators, this is very I don't know austere. Like this is not much to work with.
Yeah, it's basic.
And then hmm?
It's basic, but then again, it's
Yeah,
much more than we've ever had before in Line Rider.
yeah. um, and in this section, initially, well, I wanted the ribbons to be um, have uniform thickness, so I would have to draw a circle. Um, I don't have a circle on me right. Hold on, let me get a circle. Oops, that's not it. So I would grab a circle, take this one, and then I would put several of them like this, make them tangent to the curve, and then I would try to align a curve to that. It was pretty tedious,
yeah,
but
interesting.
that's how I did it. That's how I made all those uniform thickness ribbons. And then after several hours, I finished all. And I was like, God, I am glad I'm done with that. Then I came to this section. I was like, oh my God, I have to make more. I don't want to make more. Let me just um, make a tool for that. So
Ah,
that was the thing. You can
oh
make
wow,
uniform thickness lines.
that
You
is super
can
useful.
even
I've messed around with doing
you
stuff like
can
this myself, and most of it would just come down to like trying to copy and paste the same line and then align it over it and
yeah,
fiddling around.
yeah.
That is a good tool.
And the frustrating thing is that this took like not very long. Like I thought it was gonna be harder to do, but I realized there was this. I was overcomplicating it. Like who cares about these edge cases? Um,
Yeah,
and XKCD auto. Like it was just I was just so concerned about this. Like when I try to automate something, usually it takes more work than just doing it manually. But
to
I
to be
up to
honest,
competency, I
like
overestimated my work.
yeah, it's like what we've done is just given us better tools to make better things. It's like
Mm-hmm.
the same people still put the same amount of effort in. It's better than it
Yeah,
was.
like I know it's gonna be good for everyone, but I
Yeah.
wasn't sure if I had time. Like I had a deadline before the end of the year, but
Yeah.
I, I had time. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's out. You can use that. Um. Anyway, so what was I? Oh yeah, tools. All of these polyhedrons, these tetrahedra, and some of these cubes are were generated the with live with um the same generator. I point
Huh.
it and then I generate it and pick a size and then copy paste on them.
Cool.
Um, and these triangles, well, they just came from the original.
Yeah.
It just seemed more fitting instead of having random dashes all over.
Yeah.
Um, this fade out effect. Um,
Hmm.
I posted a video demonstrating that in Helping Device. You could check it out yourself. But I use a shade tool. Um, I could just
Nice.
demo it here. Um, let's say I have some curves I want to fade out, and I have this. I tweak it until we have it phases in a very specific way, and then slice, pick the right angle, remove. There, you have a fade out effect.
Huh. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's something very I thought was very fitting for Line Rider,
Oh yes.
and
Perforated
also
lines.
similar to the dotted lines of price. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that looked really good in the track. Definitely gives
Hmm.
you that kind of gravity well effect as you showed before. Uh,
Right. Or I mean, the fade out too.
hmm.
This XY section was made in 2009. That's when I initially had the idea of doing a fade out, and I just manually drew all those dashes. And then what ended up was the effect of having some sort of white fog over existing uh, background, which is one of the things I wanted to reference with embracing a void. Like, how do we
Hmm.
use whiteness?
Yeah.
How do we use the effect of a white fog in line art because we have so much white, so much void. and this is what I came up with, and I think this is very compelling to do in Line Rider. Like it is very specific to Line Rider because of how much white space we have.
It's true.
Um,
Yeah, sure. So
and
there's,
then
there's a lot of interesting pieces here. What's the kind of
yeah,
thick lined bit? If we zoom back into that little picture, what's the kind of like stripy thing with the thicker lines of the different square shapes and rectangles and rhombuses?
this one.
Yeah, it kind of like jumps out at you. So what did you do to
Oh yeah,
make that effect?
this was also made in 2009. Um, my initial idea was let's have XY scenery. Let's reference it in a dominant style of XY scenery, make a circuity and stuff. But also let's have a twist. Let's break that XY. And then I also again I want to be like let's make things 3D. So let's take these XY tropes we see very often in XY tracks in 2008 2009 and make it 3D. Make it jump out at you.
Oh,
And
yeah, yeah, it worked. That's a
because
good
yeah, that
effect.
was my initial idea of subverting the scenery stereotypes from back in the days.
Awesome. And that little trumpet thing, is that where the shapes are coming from?
That was also 2009. Like most of this was
Yeah.
made in 2009. I just kind of went at it like how my childhood stuff with Doodle in my Doodle book. I just didn't really think too much about it. I just needed like I just want chaos here.
Oh, did we just say doodle chaos? Oh.
No, wait. Doodle book chaos here.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um,
nice.
and something I should notice, if you notice the camera work in this section, um, let me just play it normally. In this section, you usually have like camera moving around like this, and like while it's just like bouncing all over the place. This is alt quirk. Um, I said, yeah, this is just alt quirk. Um, and have the camera move around so much. I thought it would be harder to focus on the scenery. Like that was one of the issues with quirk tracks, heavily seen quirk tracks, is that it's hard to focus on the scenery. So for this section, my solution was to hold on. What's the around like the 1 minute mark, I um I expanded the area of the balance of the camera. So I just expanded. It's kind of a hack to create the effect of a fixed view camera. A fixed view
Oh,
camera is like just having the camera stay still. So that was my hack on making the camera stay mostly still by expanding the balance of the camera.
that's a
So
good
like
hack.
in the recorded video, you see the camera's not moving around a lot, and from that you could like see how Bosch is bouncing around the scenery without the scenery just flying over a place like this, and that's how we could appreciate dense scenery a little more.
Yeah, it's a really useful idea. Hmm. So, what other points would you like to talk about in this track?
Um, another comment I want to make about this section is that I had some ideas of like using these flings, like making them into scenery themselves to
Ah,
create some
yeah,
sort of like
that was
pattern
something.
with them.
Yeah,
That's something I was thinking of doing because I saw some people had some interesting ideas with seeming flings. But
yeah,
in the
like
end, I thought to myself, I need to keep it simple.
hmm. Yeah, because that was
Yeah.
something that I remember noticing, that a part that wasn't seen, and I found that interesting.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. I wanted to sing these flings or hide them in some way, but I decided, why not just embrace it? Like, as long as the lines are attached to the ribbon, we could
Yeah.
just kind of make our just fill in the details in our brains. It's not as jarring as, say, having random dashes in the void,
Yeah.
but I just wanted to keep it clean because there's a lot of things going on, and I wanted to keep it focused. And I posted a screenshot of this a while back. The idea of like having a ribbon fold over
Hmm.
itself or rotate, twist like that is because I just couldn't. In other parts of the track, I was able to tweak the track to move it aside. Like the original had this as like continuous, but I was able to remove some of these lines and tweak the lengths. But for other parts of the track, I just couldn't do that. So, and I wanted to have the ribbon like go over, so I just had to make it twist while going over the track. It's a hack, but something interesting came out of it.
Yeah. It's useful. Hey.
And I put the sphere here because I thought something needed to fill up that space. Like having things take up space adds more tension. That's something to keep in mind for when you're making tracks. Oh yeah, these spikes, they were as per Rabbit's suggestion because I had danger here. Rabbit was like, add danger spikes, and I was like, that's a great idea. I can't believe I didn't think of that. Um, yeah, I think. Oh, get back up. This text was inspired by Get Back Up in Omniverse 1.
Nice.
And I put the text here and there because I knew Bosch would be visiting these areas twice. I wanted that because Bosch visits it multiple times. I wanted it to be as if Bosch was like following these instructions.
Nice. Can we just appreciate that Omniverse One is in its own sequel, and then you can just see like the massive like difference. Like not like just look
Yeah.
at this like massive thing compared to its
Mhm.
predecessor. The Omniverse series has certainly evolved. It's pretty nuts. So,
Yeah.
is there anything that you dislike in the final rendition of this? I mean, you must be pretty chuffed with this on the whole, but is there anything that you don't like?
Well, my past decisions.
Ah,
My the decisions I made in 2008, like um, being a smartass and like drawing these circles because I thought it was cool, and then
yeah,
having to see it, I just thought in 2008, I only planned like I only planned to track vaguely. I just thought I had some ideas and I started like drawing them out. And for
yeah.
everything else, I was like, you know what? Future me will figure it out. Future me will figure out how to like sing this stuff. Future me will figure out how to like end this track. Future me will figure out how to sing this stuff. And then future me is pressing me now. I'm like, why did I do that? God damn it, past me. But I made it work. Like,
Yeah,
uh, I had to like put in effort to make it work. If I did it again, well, the meaning will be very different because I'm not. And for this track, I'm reclaiming a flex track and turning it into a narrative, and I'm reclaiming all these 2009, 2008 quirk styles and making it work within the narrative and the scenery. But to do it over again or to do it from scratch, I think it would be very different. I think I would be a lot more intentional about what kind of track I make. Um, like, I wouldn't have made this decision. Okay, so this section, I originally had the idea of using a video edit where I would have the original sphere complete, and then as Bosch enters the sphere, it would fade away to reveal the interior. But I
huh.
think edits are just very gimmicky. Video edits are
Yeah,
just really gimmicky. So I just made it force it to work. But so I wouldn't have like these intersections of
yeah.
lines, and I wouldn't make out work.
Fair enough.
um, yeah. So biggest issues I had was just my past decisions and force my and like having those ridiculous constraints. having to work around them.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess in a sense that's also the theme of this track. We've got all this kind of grid-like substance that you're trying to escape from, which is kind of like really meta with this subject of Line Rider itself and just escaping boxes. So like, where do you wanna where do you wanna go after you've made a track like this? To I
Never
don't
spend 400 never spend 400 hours on a single track ever again.
know.
I mean, it helps that the tools are a lot better, so I shouldn't need to spend too much time, but,
Hmm.
I don't want I'm not very keen on spending so much time on a solo line rider track. Like, I will create tools to reduce the amount of time I spend on tracks, and I will scope them down such that I don't have to do so much work and filling in all these details and parts and making it all work. I don't have any plans right now, like making Omniverse 3.
Hmm.
I have other ideas I want to pursue, but
Well,
I'm
like
okay with just having this be the end.
if you
But
did, you'd have to have it start in the void, so to speak, because
I
you've
mean,
just escaped.
it might be in 3D, like literal 3D, like
Oh,
VR or something. Like you start in a void, then you enter 3D space
oh,
because everything over here is like
make it
attempting
in
to
Line
even
Rider 3D.
yeah, like maybe like actually though, because I'm like
Yeah,
trying to grasp into the third dimension here so many times. Like I even had this interpretation of 3D over here. Like it's
yeah,
natural line runners should end up in 3D space after all of this because of
yeah.
all these 3D effects. So that's like a theoretical Omniverse 3D Omniverse 3D.
Yeah,
But no real plans for that. I have other track ideas I would like to do, but I have no idea when I would do even those. But
yeah.
they're like very small in scope
Fair enough.
relatively.
Yeah. Oh, one thing we should talk about the little thing at the very, very end.
The thing.
What was that thing? Because I've seen it in one of your other tracks as well. So
Oh, this.
yeah, I recognize that the re
It's
thing.
just
Like,
a JoJo reference.
is that from an anime or something?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's recently made a revival in the main circles with, like, Theo Brando being like yeah,
I love that. It's
it was a
fucking
meme
funny.
in, like, 2006 that I just fell in love with immediately. That's like that this is a meme that just kinda got me into memes way back when, and I just loved how absurd it was. And then
Yeah.
it was a Flash animation, and it made appearances in other Flash animations, and in 2007, I people were making video edited animation tracks, like drawing things frame by frame and then video editing all of them together. So yeah, I made that video, which I released eventually in 2011. And then I thought, you know what? This track is like so serious, you know?
Yeah.
It's like very tense, very serious. I need comic relief, you
Yeah, we
know?
need some levity.
Like we need comic relief because I don't take myself too seriously
Mm.
and I don't want it to be so I
Yeah,
just had
it
to like
was like perfect comedic timing as well because like Bosch had just kind of like the credits had kind of come over, kind of started, but like Bosch was still kind of flying, so you just don't expect it. And then suddenly it's like, "Whee!" Fucking jokes.
yeah, I'm proud of that too.
Yeah, that was a good moment. I like that.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah. So I think with that we've probably covered pretty much everything in this
Oh,
track. Oh, you got one more thing?
one more thing. This explosion over here,
Oh yeah.
um, I stole it from Assault.
Oh yeah, that looks a little familiar now. Did you take the last frame of the little like wine cork thing or whatever it was, or was it? Oh, from that.
Um, yeah, so where is it?
Was it the world one?
It's this one. I just can't.
Oh, pause it and then just hit. You can frame step with comma and period.
One, two, three. Oh, okay. So this, I can't find the original artist. Whoever drew this traced it from an animator and didn't credit the animator.
Yeah.
Um, so I saw it. Well, for one thing, I wanted um this moment of like having boss suddenly accelerate, I needed something to like indicate some sort of explosive propulsion.
Hmm.
Um, and I eventually settled on like, okay, let's just have an actual explosion. Here's one I know. This was stolen from somewhere. Let me steal it again, but let me actually remix it. I'm not just tracing it. I actually reinterpreted it and just
Yeah.
made it work in here. It's transformative. I can steal things if I transform it, but I mean, this was just trace, and I'm that's like bad form.
Original artist who made that. If you're out there somewhere and you see this, let us know.
Mhm. Okay,
We will
so yeah,
finally credit you after 10 years or whatever.
yeah, I think that's all I have to say for now. And
Cool.
okay, one more thing. I'm
Yeah.
writing extensive documentation for a general audience, not just for Liner, but for a general audience, because I feel like people can appreciate this track more if they have some more context of like why I made all these decisions or ended up having to make these decisions.
Mhm.
Anyway,
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, whenever you finish that, we could definitely, I could definitely attach that to the description of this video as well.
Yeah.
Cool. So, yeah, with that, guys, I think we shall wrap up here. Thanks a lot, Conan, for doing this. This was
Hmm.
easily one of the most interesting tracks of the year. And yeah, look forward to seeing what you make next.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Cool.